Aloha. So if you've been watching my channel, well, hey guys, I'm back on screen. You hear my voice still isn't all the way there. This is not how I normally sound if this is your first video. But if you've been watching my videos, you know that I'm not real happy with Sam Cedar, the Majority Report. I watched this video earlier. I almost didn't watch it, but then for some reason I watched it a couple hours after I saw it. And it just made me mad. I really think they're the ops now. They're just Democratic ops. That's all they are. I watched a video by Sabby Sabs earlier. She has one on David Pakman. I watched a little bit of that one. Then she has one on Democrat, what they call independent media that the Democrats paid to support them. Kamala paid to support her. And that's really what I see the Majority Report as now. They just totally seem as Democratic ops. Let's see what I saw earlier.
World is on fire. It really is apocalyptic. It feels like we are at a point in our society where there's a genocide happening in Gaza and people are using that.
There's a genocide happening in Gaza. She told you to vote for that. Like she cares. She told you hardcore to vote for that. Shut up.
Brutality for their own ends, these sociopaths that run our government. And then in Los Angeles, the world is on fire. And
she's a hardcore Democrat talking about the sociopaths that run our government. You support the sociopaths that run our government.
It's a bunch of wealthy oligarchs who, and money, interests, imperial interests, what have you, weapons manufacturers. These are the people that are destroying our society.
It's so crazy when liberals say the exact right thing. They point out the exact right problem, but then they're like, oh, well, we can't solve it. We just got to incremental change. Like, oh, F you, man.
And it's a big reason why I think there's a lot of nihilism and people feeling dispirited right now.
You're the big reason why, because you tell them to vote for Democrats instead of do something.
The images out of LA here.
How much they could be talking about the Green Party in every single one of these stories. They could be talking about the Green Party, Democratic Socialists of America, and saying how we would do something. People on the left would actually do something and talk about how we would do these projects. She's just going to be like, oh, vote for Democrats.
Let's just play this. This is an overhead shot from KTLA 5 News in Los Angeles. Aerial footage of the Palisades area in Los Angeles after the smoke has cleared out, and you can just see how much damage the wildfires have inflicted.
That's crazy.
Mike, I can't believe my eyes what we're seeing here in the Pacific Palisades and into Santa Monica. Just nothing but destruction. All those hot spots are structures that have burned or are burning right now. As I zoom in, it's just home after home. I don't even have the words for it to describe. Look at this area here. This is off of, it's off of Rimmer Avenue and Monument Street. I mean, just homes are destroyed here, just wiped out completely. It's just really unbelievable to see.
It's like amazing.
The
it's
devastation
crazy.
Here, the structures that are still on fire, the businesses that have burned
all the way down,
like apartment complexes.
It's like there's nothing else to burn.
Next to that church, there looks like a church, anyways. But it's just unbelievable.
Oh, look at that church! Made it.
I'm going to put in our map system so you can see the streets that are affected here. But it is burned all the way to the shoreline, all the way down to PCH, and there you see the shoreline there. But it is just our first time looking at this. The smoke is cleared, and we're getting our first look from above at all the devastation here throughout the Pacific Palisades.
That's a helpful visual, and you can see from the air there, this was also some footage in the Palisades that was circulating inside a home in Los Angeles. You can see what it looks like when the flames are literally engulfing your home. This was shot by a resident, and I think they're okay. But here's some footage.
Oh shit!
You can see.
Is crazy. Is that outside
for the
or
podcast
inside?
Audience what this looks like. I mean, it looks like
outside
an
the home.
inferno.
I don't know how this house is still just sitting there.
Hopefully
so
some
scared
fireproof
if you was in there.
materials.
You okay? You're gonna be okay. Hi. You're gonna be okay.
So that's what that looks like.
Yeah.
And we're going to be talking about
insane.
greening our public utilities in just a second with our guests. But, you know, now, as I mentioned, 5 people have died. Nearly 200,000 people are under evacuation orders. Tens of thousands of acres have been burned. There are now 5 fires that have cropped up. It got worse last night. The water supply has also been really scarce because of the existing conditions. I mean, there's inequality issues and hoarding by the wealthy, but like LA hasn't logged more than 1/10 of an inch of rain since May of 2024. This is a climate issue, and now many residents.
And it's wild if you don't believe in climate change. Like, are you starting to? The people who don't believe in climate change, are they like starting to come around to be like, oh, there are these crazy weather things, or they don't think we're doing it? They don't think it's oil or whatnot. But it's just wild to see what's going on.
Are under a boil order notice because there's ash in the water supply.
Also, the air's not really safe to breathe.
Right. And to make matters worse, State Farm, which is one of the biggest insurers in California, canceled like hundreds of home policies. I saw 1,600 was a figure.
Like, how's that legal? How's it even possible?
Is estimated right now in the Pacific Palisades. Can we put up that thread or that explanation here by Basil? Go to the first tweet, if you don't mind. So State Farm is trying to claim like, oh, it was the burdensome regulations that pushed us out and caused us to cancel all these home insurance policies.
Burdensome regulations.
What else could we do? It's California being liberal and authoritarian or whatever. But here's the real explanation from Basil Mershabash. Do not under any circumstance buy this corporate propaganda from dominant home insurance carriers like State Farm. California law allows insurers to make reasonable profits on the risks they take. If state regulators rejected a premium level proposed by State Farm, it was probably because the proposed premium would have allowed State Farm to reap unreasonable profits. In other words, to gouge homeowners desperate for home insurance. State Farm almost certainly left California because it could, not because it was forced by premium caps. The fundamental problem in the home insurance market is that consolidation has largely eliminated competition among carriers. In absence of competition, the remaining home insurance carriers can make monopolistic profits in low-risk, low-cost regions of the country and in states that let them charge whatever premiums they want. As a result, they have little incentive to serve high-risk, high-cost markets, especially in states that do not permit them to charge unjustifiably high premiums. And they're going to claim that, we needed to charge these premiums because of the risk. If you could go to that third tweet in the thread here, Bradley. You can just see that California has granted State Farm premium increases previously over the past few years. This is, as he mentions, a problem of consolidation, of these insurance companies being able to gouge people whatever they want. And then, of course, the overall structure of the fact that this is not going to get better. How are we going to protect people and their homes?
And profit at the same time.
So I mean,
that's the thing.
I don't know. Maybe we have to go with a different party. One that isn't about just profit.
The extent that these become monopolies, competition is one route for it. Maybe antitrust is a way to do this. Or we have a public insurance against climate crisis.
Yep.
And everybody gets covered, whether you're in the Appalachians when it gets flooded or whether you're in the Palisades. We all have to be in this together. And these all this stuff, acrimony about private insurance companies, well, guess what? We don't need to have you. And it's always funny because it's like they always say we just want to do our insurance business. No, you want to get profits.
Right.
Like, let's be real. And that's never actually put forward because it's shameful, and most people don't actually think it should be involved in something like either healthcare or houses getting burnt up because we can't protect the environment anymore.
It's without that option. And without, at the very least, heavy regulation and imposing penalties on these private insurance companies, at least in the short term, to force them to cover folks in these areas, we are going to see millions of people lose their
Why not have a United States insurance? Like, the government covers what people don't want to cover. You just pay it to them.
Life's savings potentially, because we're encouraged to put all of our eggs in the home ownership basket over the next few decades due to climate-related disasters.
Ooh,
I mean, that's the reality that we're looking at right now. And this is a part of what we've been talking about, which is like what needs to be central to any leftist vision of the world, which is decommodifying these essentials so that people are not decimated.
I hate when they talk about left and they're going to say some good left stuff, but they never really do anything or push anybody to go left or do left. They tell you to vote for right-wingers and they talk all this left-wing politics. It's just so disingenuous.
When the socialized losses that oil and gas and capitalists have imposed on us take out everything they've ever owned. I mean, these are communities that are gone. And if you're like, wagging your finger at the liberal coastal elites in this current moment, and because some of these areas are wealthy, you are really missing the forest through the trees here. No pun intended about this horrible wildfire. If it's not Malibu, it's going to be areas in Florida. And like the Hollywood Hills fire, what was freaking people out so much about that was that had the potential, and I'm not sure about the updated information, to go into an extremely densely populated area around Hollywood, which is more low income. So some of the reactions that I've been seeing have been silly, but we should all be in this together. And frankly, these oil and gas companies should be nationalized and then broken apart.
That is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. If something gets too big that everybody depends on it, you nationalize it. And then you either make it cheaper, like you can make oil cheaper, gas cheaper to people, or you can make it free, or you can use the profits like taxes, right? You can use it for roads and schools and things like that. You would never nationalize something to break it up. That is the stupidest shit I've ever heard. This is not a left-wing thought. Who would do that? Why would... It's like getting Facebook. You nationalize Facebook and then break it up. Why would you... You're so stupid. I can't... This show has just become... I don't even know.
Because they don't have any incentive to stop. They're trying to make money.
All these people have incentives, also including the AI.
I want to know what your incentive to say this stupid shit is.
Making climate change worse. They all have an incentive to point the finger in the wrong directions, which is something that we'll talk about later in the show. Hey,
man. So as you can see, I used to be a huge fan of the Majority Report. I really did. They were one of my favorite shows at the beginning of my political journey or whatnot. And Michael Brooks really... He didn't take me left. I was already about as far left as you could be, but he really honed my bona fides, right? Like, these people talking about nationalized oil and break it up, vote blue no matter who. I can't even with them. So these, to me, they're just Democratic ops. These are not serious people. They're not on the left at all. They're pointless to me. It's so crazy. All right, switching gears. We're not switching gears, but switching channels. So we got Philip DeFranco here. He's going to go over the fire situation in LA.
What's going on in Southern California right now is worse than we could have imagined, and it's getting even worse. With the quick numbers right now being tens of thousands of acres burned, over 2,000 structures destroyed, at least tens of billions of dollars in damage, and 5 dead. Also, the number of active blazes has expanded from 3 to 5, with new ones popping up near the Hollywood Hills and Antelope Valley. Now, the one in the Hollywood Hills, that drew a lot of attention in particular last night because it was threatening not only famous landmarks like the Hollywood sign and Griffith Observatory, but also the densely populated areas of the famous Hollywood Strip as well. With that then leading to mandatory evacuations in these areas, although that was lifted as of 7:30 a.m. local time. And reportedly, while that fire hasn't been contained at all, it is slowing down, which could explain why the evacuation orders were lifted. But unfortunately, that is nowhere near the only fire that firefighters are struggling to stop. The Palisades fire and the Eaton fires continue to blaze and grow, and their destruction's just been fucking devastating. In the Palisades, we've seen entire neighborhoods and historic shopping districts completely destroyed. And a lot of Altadena, where the Eaton fire has done most of its damage and where the most buildings have been lost so far, it's almost literally nearly entirely gone, as we can see from satellite imagery. And neither the Palisades nor Eaton fires have been contained as of recording, and it's possible for a variety of reasons. Like, I know yesterday that we talked about there being hurricane force winds, but I don't think just saying it really conveyed just how crazy it is. I mean, this is what I mean. Those winds fling embers all over the place, and they send them flying, making it so that these fires move crazy fast. Which is also why if you're in the areas affected, like, you should get the fuck out when they say get out. Right? When one's closing in, not only is it moving fast, but an ember can be thrown way ahead of you and start a new fire that cuts you off. And also, because of everything that we're seeing, it's led to discussions about how these fires have gotten so crazy, and it's led to this 5-month-old Joe Rogan comment going viral.
I talked to a fireman once, and he goes, dude, one day, he goes, it's just going to be the right wind, and fire's going to start in the right place, and it's going to burn through LA all the way to the ocean, and there's not a fucking thing we can do about it. I go, really? He goes, yeah, we just get lucky. He goes, we get lucky with the wind. He goes, but if the wind hits the wrong way, it's just going to burn straight through LA, and there's not going to be a thing we can do about it. Because these fires are so big, dude. When they're talking about like thousands of acres that are burning simultaneously with like 40-mile-an-hour winds. And the wind's just blowing embers through the air, and those embers are landing on roofs, and those houses are going up, and they're landing on bushes, and those bushes are going up, and everything's dry. And once it happens in a way where it's so spread out that there's nothing they can do.
Although also with that, I will say anyone from or who has lived in SoCal will tell you that this is kind of an open secret. Like, the state has a fire season, like it's fucking Armageddon. The climate is perfect for massive forest fires, and the ecology is reliant on them. But also some, like the nonpartisan outlet Cal Matters, they've pointed out that these fires aren't during the normal fire season, and they could be fueled by climate change, which has led to crazy swings in weather. And I mean, you only need to look at LA to see what they mean. Almost a year ago, this exact place was flooded under record rainfall. In just the span of a few days, it got a year's worth of rain. But 11 months later, it's dry, on fire, and there's no water to be found. Speaking of which, that's been a big question for everyone, because it quickly became apparent yesterday that firefighters in places like the Pacific Palisades were running out of water at even the fire hydrants. With that, then leading to a lot of speculation and accusations of incompetence. With, for example, Donald Trump saying on Truth Social, Governor Gavin Newsom refused to sign the water restoration declaration put before him that would have allowed millions of gallons of water from excess rain and snow melt from the north to flow daily into many parts of California, including the areas that are currently burning in a virtually apocalyptic way. He wanted to protect an essentially worthless fish called a smelt by giving it less water. It didn't work, but didn't care about the people of California. Now the ultimate price is being paid. I will demand that this incompetent governor allow beautiful, clean, fresh water to flow into California. He is the blame for this. On top of it all, no water for fire hydrants, no firefighting planes, a true disaster. Now with all that, there are a number of things to dive into, like regarding the smelt. That is a small fish native to the San Francisco estuary and is endangered both statewide and federally. It's also considered what's known as an indicator species, meaning that the health of its population is a good sign for how healthy that ecosystem is. And for years now, their population has been declining, so efforts backed by Newsom to help the species have included limiting how much water is being diverted from that area to other parts of the state. All of which has been the source of a ton of lawsuits and legal battles, as many parts of the state are feeling the effects of not having enough water. Though this also, as some people have tried to debunk this as the reason for a lack of water, saying things like, the reason there is no water available in fire hydrants in LA is because the water lines have been broken or burned by the fire, so there is no water pressure, in addition to low water pressure due to 8 months of drought. Resist politicized accusations and conspiracy theories. However, that appears to be a bit of misinformation, as even LA officials were saying that was not the reason.
I want to be very clear that the water continues to flow in the Palisades area through our main system. We haven't had any disruption into the water system.
So where's the water?
Because the winds were severely limited, the air operations, the number of fire hoses connected to the fire hydrants depleted our tanks in the area, specifically in higher elevations. We immediately implemented our contingency plans to provide water trucks to support our firefighters, and our crews are working on how to refill those tanks during this very moment.
You also had LADWP's CEO and chief engineer saying earlier in the conference that this was not a case of the LADWP being unprepared.
In preparation for the windstorm, LADWP activated its emergency preparation plans and filled all 114 available water reservoirs and storage facilities throughout the city, including the 3 1 million gallon tanks in the Palisades area. We also fuel all our generators serving our pump stations to ensure water will flow out through the emergency.
And so the short version, according to LA's Department of Water and Power, is that the water was being used faster than it could be replaced since they couldn't rely on helicopters and planes to fight the fires. And in general, she also emphasized that they were searching for solutions to get even more water and also asking residents in Western LA to please conserve water. Now, with all that said, you also had a lot of people pointing fingers, trying to say who's responsible for what's happening, with many actually looking at LA Mayor Karen Bass. And as it turns out, Bass was in Ghana when the fire started. Almost literally the second she landed, she was asked questions about the situation. And at the press conference, she really didn't offer much new information and just reiterated what others said. That the city was prepared and is working together to tackle the issue. We also saw a lot of people talking about her push to slash the cities and the LAFD's budget, which was something that we talked about yesterday, so I won't go fully into it again, but there are some new things. Like, for example, a warning that LA Fire Chief Kristen Crowley gave to Bass last month that the budget cuts would hurt the department's ability to respond to emergencies just like this. But still, there are those who are defending Bass's decision and claim that conservatives are trying to play both sides of the issue. But essentially,
right, they're always telling you cut
Bass
stuff.
had a lot of pressure to cut the city's budget in 2024 to close a massive deficit. But then when a massive disaster like this strikes, the city is asked, why was spending cut? But to be very clear here, right, it wasn't just conservatives who have been critical of the city and state's leadership. You had everyday people and folks like the Young Turks' Anna Kasparian, for example, being heavily critical of Democratic control of the state, saying with this, California and especially LA is controlled by Democrats. They are responsible. No more passing the buck. Our mayor, who was in Ghana as fires exploded in our city, cut the fire budget by $17 million.
Yes, she was in Ghana. How stupid is that? A fire can happen. He even said it's not the fire season. So you go on vacation when it's not the fire season and a fire breaks out and they're like, oh, you were in Ghana. Really? So, if you're an elected official and they say you can never go on vacation, fine, that's cool. If you know before you get in, all right, then don't go on vacation. You have to be on the job every single day. But doesn't every president break the previous president's golfing record? Like, they go on vacations, everybody. It's supposed to be, it's so weird.
Dollars. Endless amounts of money funneled to bullshit scammer homeless nonprofits. We're the highest taxed, yet we have encampments and squalor everywhere. Even worse, we don't have enough firefighters to respond to the absolute disaster we're experiencing right now. Rather than conserve the record rain we got last year, we just drained it into the ocean. We are a failing city run by a sick excuse for local government. You want to radicalize people against the modern Democratic Party?
Why would you drain it into the ocean if that's true? Like, I don't know about that, but if it's true, you should not drain it. Just let it soak into the ground.
Them to LA. Though that was not the only person or thing that was getting blamed for this disaster. With one of the big narratives being pushed around right now by accounts like Libs of TikTok being that LA Fire's leadership are DEI hires, and so with that also makes them incapable. They're saying, meet Los Angeles Fire Chief Kristen Crowley. She boasts about being the first female and LGBTQ fire chief in the LA Fire Department. Promoting a culture of DEI is her priority. Does this make you feel safer? Though with that, you had plenty of people countering that Crowley being solely a DEI hire, that doesn't match with her career. Or with it being noted that she is a 22-year firefighter vet. She's done essentially every job within the field, including leadership positions like captain, battalion chief, assistant chief, fire marshal, deputy chief. And actually, when she took her first firefighter exam in the late 90s, she was in the top 50 out of 16,000 applicants, with former mayor Eric Garcetti, who appointed her, explicitly stating that she was appointed because of her credentials. Now also, with this, similar claims have been made about the head of the LADWP. Though again, you have people pointing to her extensive resume, noting that she was a Coast Guard commander for 15 years, including a 5-year stint working in incident management. And also, just before getting to the LADWP, she was a senior vice president in Pacific Gas, an electric company. However, I will say, separate from the whole DEI narrative thing, I should note that even with all those credentials, it doesn't mean that the ball couldn't have been dropped. It's just that on that front, we really don't know that yet, and likely won't know until some kind of investigation's done, which I'm willing to bet will be coming after things calm down. But then finally, with this, to wrap up a few other details, we have seen a ton of conspiracy theories related to all this. Some just kind of funny, and some just weird. Like, there's one guy who was implying something was up because the streets weren't burning when everything else was, to which the community notes had to say,
not burning?
Concrete doesn't burn. But then this also, as others were going, the full elites are up to something here, saying things like, rumors are circulating that the Pacific Palisades fire was started by a satanic ritual. Pay close attention to the location where the fire began. The address stems from behind this creepy red roof mansion that is straight out of a horror movie. I am launching a full investigation into the neighborhood and the owners of those compounds. The elites will never again be able to operate in the shadows. And with that, like every good conspiracy theory, there's just a dash of truth at least in there. Because yes, the fire was reportedly started in a backyard according to officials. Not to mention that the creepy red roof mansion is just kind of a way to say you're not from Southern California without saying you're not from Southern California. That's just a generic Spanish colonial style home. It's something that's very popular in SoCal. Like every house in that neighborhood has it, and not because they're secret Satanists. Also, as far as why this guy was saying this, you had community notes saying apparently that he makes these insane claims all the time to generate ad revenue on his post, which is a common criticism of X's blue checkmark program. But with all of that said, how I'll close this is just by saying everything just feels crazy and chaotic there. If you are out there, please listen to the authorities. Please be safe. And for now,
So we are going to finish the fires featuring Fox Force 5.
President-elect Trump and Gavin Newsom trading shots on who's to blame and who's politicizing what over the deadly wildfires that have ravaged the global
Rubber
statewide.
versus glue.
It's very sad because I've been trying to get Gavin Newsom to allow water to come. You'd have tremendous water up there. They send it out to the Pacific because they're trying to protect a tiny little fish.
Well, he isn't the only person calling out Greasy Gav. Watch this.
Literally talking to the president right now to specifically answer the question of what we can do for you and your daughter.
Can I hear it? Can I hear your call? Because I don't believe it. Why was there no water in the hydrants, Governor?
Dana, that woman speaks for so many.
So
there
in
is
the
so much
the
frustration.
last clip we watched, they said that the water is being used faster than they could refill it.
They are angry at Karen Bass. They're particularly angry at this governor who's had a long, long time to fix these problems that Rick Caruso has said that they predicted them, they could have prevented them.
And Gavin Newsom basically has the run of government out there with the state legislature, right? So if you wanted to put some points on the board and get some things done, you could have. You've also could have had he had the political might to be able to tell the environmentalists, go pound sand. We're not going to leave kindling around here when we know these Santa Ana winds are coming. We are going to clear the brush. And yes, we are going to fill the reservoirs. Do not file that. Do not defend that lawsuit. There are lots of things that he could have done. I was thinking today, imagine if Ron DeSantis were the governor of Florida. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, the governor of California. Yeah. Even for a year, the things that might be different today. And I think that her being...
One of the things I think is strange where we build. If there's forest fires like this, there's forest fires in California every year. That's crazy, and taking down people's houses. Why build houses in those areas? I would assume, maybe I'm wrong, but I would assume that with as much land that there is across the United States and world in general, that you could survey land for like peaceful and calmer areas.
Willing to go up to him and Gavin Newsom being willing to talk to her at least, rather than Karen Bass, who was just dumbfounded after 14 hours on a flight and couldn't come up with "I'm sorry." But what was she doing? Just watching the flight map for 14 hours? And
no, she said she was on the phone, but it doesn't feel like
it doesn't really look like. But they didn't fill up the reservoirs. This is also something that
Well, see, on the last clip they said they did fill the reservoirs, so
there's the short-term problem, but there's a lot.
But see, that's why I like to look at things from across the spectrum, right, on different sides. So the Philip DeFranco guy, I don't think he's really left or right. He's kind of like a old school news guy who just kind of finds all the news and just tells you straight out. To me, he doesn't give a whole lot of opinion. I don't really think. But yeah. So he was showing where the lady, she was on the news, right, doing the we call that, not the podcast, the briefing or whatever, the media briefing, and she said that they had all the reservoirs full, that they had I think there was like 1 million gallons or something, or whatever they said, 2 of them in the Palisades or whatever. They said they had them all full, but now they're going to say, these people are going to say that they didn't. So I can't tell you which one is actually true, but that's why I like to hear what everybody's listening to and figure out, over time, try to figure out what's true. But if you don't actually go, how are you actually going to know?
Longer term problem, and we've talked about that with Little Delta Smelt and all of these things. There is a reckoning coming, and one of the exciting things for people that want to regroup and have better environmental and land conservation policies going forward is that with this new administration, you have a lot of different people that will be there, and one of them is Governor Doug Burgum of North Dakota. He understands these issues very, very well and will be instrumental in helping make this happen. And then Brooke Rollins over at the U.S. Department of Agriculture, they oversee forests. So I think you're going to see a concentrated effort to make sure this doesn't happen again. But we're just at that tipping point of understanding the scope and scale of this disaster.
Yes.
And that woman was just one person who lost everything, doesn't know where her kids are going to go to school.
No,
oh man, a lot of people lost everything.
Burned down. And again, you're talking
about looks like Gaza.
That is so incredibly personal. But Greg, obviously you are from California. Gavin Newsom has had a lot of time to fix these things, but he doesn't want to because they're not sexy. You know, as you pointed out in the past, he's much more interested.
I think it would be pretty sexy to get these fires put out pretty fast. Like, what governor wouldn't want to have it where, oh, there's forest fires, bam, I put them out. Look at me, I'm the man. Like, why would you want to put yourself in this position? That doesn't make any sense.
Interested in virtue signaling and talking about things that feel good and make him seem like a good person, as opposed to tackling the things that he's not going to get a lot of credit for, that take a lot more work, but will help the long-term health of the.
How wouldn't he get credit for like, if it was possible? Like, I don't know, they said the reserves are full, but if it was actually possible to have so much water that they could control these fires, like it was just like easy, right? Like, bam, 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 they're out. He would get so much credit for that. Oh, California hasn't had a wildfire in 5 or 10 years or whatever. You don't get a lot of credit for a fish. Now, like, I'm not saying I think that the fish deserves to be whatever. It doesn't even matter. Like, I've heard about the fish the first time, like yesterday or whatever. But I'm saying, like, he's not gonna get a lot of credit for a fish. But he knows that there's wildfires in Florida or California, and that if he can put them out in a quick rate, that he'll get credit for that. So, I mean, to him, he probably thought that was more important or whatever to save this fish. But I'm just saying, like, he picked the thing that he'd get less credit for. She's totally backwards on her reasoning.
State, should he resign?
Excellent question. You know, I find that these strongest anti-communists were once communists. You know, the most persuasive Republicans are usually an ex-Democrat that was burned by their policies. Look at the trans movement. The most persuasive voices on against child mutilation are the detransitioners. You look at the most interesting Republicans we have now, they're basically canceled Democrats, Elon Musk, RFK Jr., Tulsi. So the most powerful agent for change is the person burned by their own beliefs. And I think you're going to see that. I was just thinking too, the reaction to the fires in LA kind of mirrored the reaction to crime in New York. It's where the public suddenly realizes that there's no help coming. There's no help coming. And we sit there and we talked about crime for years and nobody listened. We have a governor who went on the subway and said how safe it is. And days later, a woman was set on fire. Ironically, it took a woman in flames to get people to realize that platitudes won't save you. And it's doing that right here. Lastly, it's weird. I was just thinking about this, that, you know, so many people are homeless. There's like thousands of homeless people. I don't think any of them are going to be sleeping on the streets. Just think about why not? What's the difference?
Well, the money is allocated towards something that hasn't gotten better. It has only gotten worse.
No, I'm just saying there are people who are homeless that aren't going to be on the streets. So why are the homeless on the streets? You know what I mean? It's like, we think like they don't have, there's something about the lifestyle. If you have a network of people around you, if you haven't cut yourself off from the world, you will find a place.
So people are angry. The anger has to go somewhere. Why shouldn't it go to the governor?
It should. And I think that he feels okay about it. I mean, he wasn't trying to turn his back on her and push her off on a staffer. I think that Gavin Newsom, especially in the post-French Laundry world, understands that you need to do constituent relations better, and you need to be a public face for it. And I haven't seen him cowering from this. I think that's
the only thing he does. I think he's the public face, and I think he's really good at optics. But when he says things like, we're going to leave the water up to the local folks, it's a state issue. It's not just a local issue. And
I have never heard a right-winger say that. Every right-winger I ever hear talk about issues, they want to break it down to the localist, smallest level that they can. She says it's a state issue, not a local issue. So, and that's the first time that I've heard this too, that Gavin Newsom said it was more of a local issue than a state issue, and he's going to let the local people handle it. So, I don't know. That's pretty different.
It was a longer conversation than just that soundbite, obviously. And I'm not here to say that everything has gone perfectly. Obviously not. It's going to be $52 billion probably to repair this. You know, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands displaced. I hope that it's only 5 who have passed away.
$52 billion. So I live in Hawaii, like I say every now and then. I wonder if they're going to build Lahaina or LA first, because Lahaina is a year out, right? We're a little over a year out, and this is probably going to be more expensive than Lahaina is, because Lahaina is just much smaller, just because it's on this island, you know. So I wonder who gets built back first.
Hey, but we
built back better.
But, and it's not because I'm a Pollyanna or I can't take it.
Pollyanna.
I just don't see why it's worthwhile for President-elect Trump to be calling him Gavin Newsom, or to say, like, you should resign right now. Like, if Barack Obama had shown up in New Jersey after Sandy and said, like, hey, Chris, you could lose a few pounds or something like that, or gone down to Florida and said to DeSantis, like, those lifts are doing a lot of work down there, right? How tall are you really? Like, why?
Well, Trump did that though to him too.
I think he is. He's making fun. Greasy Gavin Newsom.
You know, but Jessica,
that's
the issue with you guys.
No, it's
You're
not.
so obsessed with talk.
I'm not.
And not
action.
action.
I have action things to say on top of that. I'm making a
well,
point
then say
about,
them, Jessica, because no one
well,
cares
stop talking
about
so I can.
name calling. All right?
Actually, some people do.
No,
and
no one cares what he calls them, Jessica. The state is on fire. The state's on fire, and you're out here saying they have water.
No.
They don't have water.
I'm saying that the tanks were full. There was a pressure problem. Either way,
Jessica, there's a pressure problem because their tank was empty,
the governor
all right?
of California should not have to put a fact check up on his site that says Trump is conflating two entirely unrelated things: the conveyance of water to South California and supply from local storage. No such document as, quote, water restoration declaration exists. It's pure fiction. Why can't President-elect Trump take the mandate that he got, right? A lot of left-leaning people voted for him and show up and just say...
I know we're in the middle of Jesse on Jesse action, but let's hear from Jesse Water.
Jesse on Jesse action. Ooh.
I mean, I have press releases from the state, from the DOJ. California sues Trump administration to block water rules. Attorney General Becerra files lawsuit against Trump administration. They're trying to send water from the north to the south, and they're suing them to stop it because of fish that no one eats, Jessica. That's all we're saying. That's what we're saying. We're saying that the guy can't run the state, and he's sitting there with his hands in his pockets. And you're bringing up the homeless. There's a good chance the homeless started this fire. Did you know that 54% of the fires that the LA Fire Department respond to were started by the homeless?
Another reason for housing first policies. Homeless people cause fires, and even forest fires that will cost $52 billion. So why not house these people so homeless people will cause 0% of fires?
Spending more money.
Then we would just have half the fires that we have if homeless people actually do start 52% of fires.
On the homeless, and we aren't starting. Of the fires that the LA Fire Department respond to were started by the homeless.
Oh, we missed
and
out.
We're spending hands in his pockets. And you're bringing up the homeless. There's a good chance the homeless started this fire. Did you know that 54% of the fires that the LA Fire Department respond to were started by the homeless? And we're spending more money on the homeless than we aren't starting and stopping these fires, Jessica. This guy is a bad...
So if we're spending so much money on the homeless, and then you add in the fires that they cause, which I doubt people put that on the homeless cost, right? How much would we save as a nation, as a community, as a people, just housing them?
Bad executive. And he wants to run for president. And he's got no army behind him. Bezos is gone. Bezos is in Mar-a-Lago. Zuckerberg's at Mar-a-Lago. Who's going to stand with Newsom while everything's burnt to a crisp? Nobody.
Not his wealthy billionaire donors who used to have homes. They're certainly not going to stand with him and bankroll his presidential run. I think this hurts his legacy, and I don't think he rebounds from this.
Jessica,
and I hope he doesn't.
Whoever smelt it, dealt it.
Click here to subscribe.
I wonder... You made me forget what I... Oh, okay. Who spelled the Delta? I wonder if any like really rich people lost their home. Like she said that all his rich followers are gonna be mad at him now, or backers or whatever. So I wonder if that's gonna be true. How many people lost their home, Oprah or anybody over there? But anyways, that is Majority Report doing their ops, but covering the fire, and then a few other people covering the fire from across the spectrum.